I never planned to fall for him. In fact, that night, I barely even planned to stay at the office. But sometimes it's the nights you don't expect anything that change everything. I was the last one left again. The soft blue glow of my screen was the only light in the room. And outside the glass walls of the 22nd floor, the city had begun to dim, office lights winking out one by one. My fingers were numb from typing, my shoulders aching from hours hunched over the same client deck, and all I could think about was how I wanted to scream. Scream from the exhaustion, from the loneliness, from the constant need to prove myself in a job where being just good was never enough. I was tired. Not just the kind of tired sleep could fix, but soul tired. That's when I heard the elevator dot it. Was late well past 8:10. I figured security had come to check the floor. But it wasn't security. It was him, Daniel Hayes, my boss. My extremely attractive, intimidating boss. Wearing a tailored shirt with the sleeves rolled up and his tie loosened. Looking more like a man walking out of a dream than someone who just closed out a board meeting. My breath caught. I hated that he had that effect on me. He noticed me, of course he didn't, walked over with that slow, purposeful confidence he always had, like he knew exactly how the world would shape itself around him. Burning the midnight oil. He asked, voice low, warm. I gave a half smile and nodded, trying to hide how flustered I suddenly felt. He leaned on the edge of my desk, arms crossed casually, eyes flicking over my screen, then back to me. You really don't stop, do you? It wasn't just the words. It was the way he looked at me when he said them, like he saw something no one else ever bothered to see. That was the beginning of the shift. It's that strange, fragile moment where something passed between us. Something that felt like heat or tension, or a question neither of us was ready to ask. I said something dumb, something about deadlines and needing to get things right. And he nodded thoughtfully, but his gaze didn't move from mine. You ever let anyone take care of you for a change? He said. I swallowed. I didn't know how to answer that because the truth was I didn't. I always took care of everyone else. Friends, family, coworkers, even my boyfriend Mark. I held everything together while quietly unraveling inside that night. After Daniel left, I sat at my desk and just stared at the spot where he'd stood. My whole body felt like it had been lit from the inside. Not because he'd touched me, he hadn't, but because he'd seen me. Not the overachiever, not the reliable team player, not the girlfriend who didn't complain, but me. And I wasn't sure what to do with that. On the train home, I couldn't stop thinking about the way his voice dipped when he said my name, or how close he'd stood. Like the space between us was meant to be crossed. It was nothing. A conversation, a moment. But deep down, I knew I'd crossed an invisible line. Something inside me had shifted. I'd never look at Daniel Hayes the same way again. And maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't look at me the same either. Asterisk, I couldn't stop thinking about him. It was maddening. Every little glance, every word replayed in my head like a song stuck on repeat. I'd lay in bed beside Mark, my longtime boyfriend, pretending to sleep. While my mind wandered to Daniel's voice, the way his eyes lingered a little too long, how he asked if anyone ever took care of me. That single question cracked something, open inside me. And once it cracked, I couldn't seem to close it. The worst part? Didn't even know if he meant it the way I felt it. Maybe it was just a moment. Maybe it was just me. But I knew something had changed, and I was terrified to admit it out loud. Things with Mark had been off for a while, but I'd convinced myself that all relationships eventually lost their spark. We did the normal thing, stakeout on Fridays. Lazy Sunday mornings, conversations about rent and groceries. But there were too many silences lately. The kind of silences that weren't peaceful, just empty. We hadn't touched each other with real hunger in months. I wanted to want him. I tried. But the truth is, I was lonely even when I was with him. And when Daniel started texting me after hours, just simple things, a joke about work, a hope. You're getting some rest. I felt seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. It was innocent enough. I told myself that, lied to myself. I told myself I could control it, that I was just flattered, not tempted, that I was loyal, I was good. Then came the Montreal trip. It was a company off-site, 2 days of presentations, dinners, and way too much awkward team bonding. I shared a hotel room with one of the girls from marketing, and Daniel was, of course, there as a lead. The first day was uneventful, all smiles and schedules. But the second night was different. There was a formal cocktail reception on the rooftop patio. Everyone was dressed up, buzzing on wine and flattery. I wore a black dress I hadn't worn in years, fitted with an open back. I felt alive. I caught Daniel's eyes across the room more than once, and each time I felt it. That slow burn. That what if. Later, after most of the crowd had filtered out, I stepped out onto the balcony alone, trying to cool down and get some space from my thoughts. I heard the door open behind me, and then he was there. Daniel, holding a glass of something amber, looking at me like I was the only person left in the world. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. "You look ... double quotes." He paused, then smiled. "Beautiful tonight." I didn't respond. I just looked out over the water, the city lights flickering across the surface like stars. "You ever think about leaving it all?" he asked after a long silence. Starting fresh, I turned toward him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, stepping a little closer, "what if there's something out there waiting for you on? You're too scared to reach for it." I didn't know if he was talking about work or life or love or me, but the way he looked at me was like he wanted me to be brave. He didn't kiss me. Not that night, but when our hands brushed as we walked back inside. And he didn't move, a way I knew. Whatever this was, it had already begun, and it was only going to get harder to deny. Asterisk, I don't remember who kissed who first. I just remember the silence before it, the thick, electric kind that hums between two people who've been pretending for far too long. One moment we were talking, laughing too easily in the dim light of Daniel's office after another late night, and the next, the air between us collapsed. All that tension we danced around for weeks finally snapped. And when it did, it felt inevitable. Lips met mine like he'd been holding back for years, not months. Urgent, hungry. My back hit the wall before I even knew I was moving. His hands in my hair, mine fisting the front of his shirt like I was afraid he'd disappear if I let go. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was fire. The kind that burns down everything in its path. And I let it after. We sat on the couch, in his office, tangled together, breathing hard. My lipstick smeared, my heart racing, my entire world tilted sideways. I stared at the ceiling, not sure whether to laugh or cry. "We shouldn't have done that," I whispered, though I didn't mean it. Not really. He looked over at me, his hand still resting on my thigh. "I know," he said, "but I don't regret it, and the worst part, neither did I. Something had cracked open in me, something wild and starved. For weeks, I'd felt like I was sleepwalking through my life, through my relationship, through my job, even through my own body. But with Daniel, I felt awake. It was dangerous, reckless, probably 1,000 kinds of wrong. But it made me feel like me again. Or maybe someone I hadn't been allowed to be in a long time. And once I'd tasted that, there was no going back. We didn't stop after that night. We told ourselves it would be a one-time thing, a mistake we'd bury, but we both knew we were lying. It became a pattern. Late nights in his office, a weekend work trip where we barely left the hotel room. We texted constantly inside jokes, long confessions, photos that made my pulse race. It was passionate, raw, messy. It was also a secret. And secrets have weight. At home, I became an actress. I smiled at Mark. I cooked dinner. I asked about his day. I kissed him goodnight and curled into a ball of guilt once he fell asleep. Every lie tasted bitter, but I swallowed them anyway. because I told myself I deserved this. That I'd given and given for so long, and now it was my turn to take. But sometimes when I caught my reflection in a window or the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked tired, hollow, like she was trying to outrun herself. Still, I kept going back to Daniel, not because I didn't know better, but because I'd already fallen. And even though I hadn't said it out loud, I knew the truth deep in my bones. I was in love with him, which meant that eventually everything was going to come crashing down. Guilt is a strange thing. It doesn't scream, it whispers. Quietly, relentlessly. It curls around your chest like a snake, slowly tightening until you can't breathe without feeling it. I woke up every morning beside Mark with a pit in my stomach, wondering how I got here. Wondering when exactly I stopped being the kind of woman who told the truth. I told myself I was caught in something bigger than me, something I couldn't help. But the truth was uglier. I made the choice over and over. I chose Daniel. Every late-night text, every stolen moment, every lie that dripped so smoothly off my tongue, I started believing it myself. I'd smile at Mark like everything was fine, while secretly scheduling my next hotel room with a man who was never supposed to be mine. And the worst part? I felt alive with Daniel, even when I hated myself for it. There was a rawness to what we had. It wasn't just sex. It was this insatiable craving for each other, like we were filling a hunger neither of us wanted to admit we had. We met in stairwells, his car, a hotel near the office where the front desk clerk started recognizing me. He would pull me close like he needed me to breathe, and I'd melt into him, forgetting just for a little while that I had a life outside of him. We never talked about the future. We didn't dare. We lived in stolen hours and locked doors. And yet, some part of me believed that meant something. That he saw me the way I wanted to be seen, brave, bold, desired. Then everything changed with a photo. It was an accident. I walked into his office one afternoon after a meeting, and he'd left a drawer open just a crack. I went to grab a folder, and there it was, a framed picture. A woman, her arms around Daniel, both of them smiling like they had the world at their feet. My heart stopped. I knew instantly this wasn't a sister or a friend. It was the kind of photo couples put on nightstands, the kind that says forever. When he walked in and saw me staring, the look on his face told me everything before he even opened his mouth. "I was going to tell you," he said quietly, closing the drawer like it could somehow hide the truth. "Her name's Rachel. We're separated. It's complicated. Complicated." The word echoed like a slap. My face burned, my throat tightened, and all I could think was, I'm the other woman. Not just the girl cheating on her boyfriend, but the affair. It's affair. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just left. Just walked straight out of his office, past our coworkers, down the hallway, like I still had control over something, anything. I felt hollow, betrayed, stupid. How could I have believed I was different? That I wasn't just a distraction? A thrill to soothe whatever was broken in his marriage. That night, I went home and sat on the couch in silence until Mark walked in. He smiled, tired, and dropped his keys in the bowl by the door. I looked at him and felt something twist in my gut. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending. "I have to tell you something," I said, and just like that, it's the life I had unraveled with 7 words. Because the truth always comes, no matter how long you run from it. Mark didn't say a word for the longest time after I told him. He just sat there staring at the floor, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles twitching in his neck. I had prepared myself for yelling, maybe even crying, but not this silence. It was the kind that made your stomach twist, the kind that feels more like punishment than forgiveness ever could. When he finally looked up, his voice was calm too. "Calm? Was it just sex?" he asked, and the answer was no. God, I wished it were. I wished I could have given him something simple, something awful, but at least containable. But I couldn't lie anymore. No, I whispered. It was more than that. Watching the pain bloom in his eyes was like pressing my hand against a flame and choosing to leave it there. I hated myself for what I'd done, for how I let it happen, for not stopping it sooner. But also, if I was being brutally honest, for not regretting it the way I should have. Mark packed a bag that night. He didn't yell. He didn't slam the door. He just left. I sat alone in the living room for hours, staring at the blank TV screen, replaying every choice that led me here. I thought telling him would bring some kind of relief, some sense of doing the right thing. But all it brought was silence and the slow, steady echo of my own guilt. And still somewhere underneath all that grief was a whisper of Daniel. His hands, his words, the way he made me feel seen. That whisper made me sick and wild and ashamed all at once. How could something that felt so right in the moment unravel into something so devastating? A few days passed. Then Daniel called. I didn't answer at first. I wasn't ready. I didn't know what I wanted from him. Any more truth, apology, closure, a promise? I didn't even know who I was without the chaos of sneaking around and lying to everyone, including myself. When I finally picked up, his voice cracked on the other end. I miss you, he said. I know everything's a mess, but I meant it, all of it. I care about you. I'm trying to figure this out. I could hear the weight in his voice, but it wasn't enough. Not now. Do you love her? I asked. There was a long pause. It's not that simple, he said. And that was my answer. Love should be simple. Maybe not easy, but clear. And what I had with Daniel was 1,000 shades of gray, all bleeding into each other until I couldn't tell right from wrong. Anymore? I hung up without saying goodbye. The next day, I requested a transfer to another department. It didn't fix everything, hell. It didn't fix anything, but it was a start. I needed space. From him, from the memory of what we did, from the version of me that had gotten so lost in wanting to feel alive that she didn't care who she hurt along the way. Grief comes in waves, and I let it crash over me. It's the end of a relationship, the death of a fantasy, the realization that maybe I wasn't the hero of the story, I was the storm. But even then, something inside me whispered, this isn't the end. Not yet. Asterisk, heartbreak has a sound. It's not loud, not like screaming or crashing plates. It's quieter. It's the hollow click of your front door closing behind someone you loved. It's the hum of your phone when it lights up with their name, and you don't answer. The echo of your own breathing in a room that used to feel full. After everything unraveled, Mark walking out. Daniel's silence thick with complication. I felt like I was floating through my life, half here, half elsewhere. I'd go to work, smile at people, answer emails, sit through meetings, and then come home and stare at the ceiling like it could tell me who I was now. I missed Mark. I missed the version of me that could love him without question. But more than anything, I missed the illusion that I was a good person, making good choices. Because now I knew I wasn't. Not then. Weeks passed. One transferred. Departments moved to a smaller desk near a window. It was quieter, more isolated, exactly what I needed. I didn't see Daniel much anymore, which was both a relief and a heartbreak. Occasionally, I'd catch a glimpse of him across the office, always polished, unreadable. We never spoke beyond work necessities. We'd become strangers in the most painful way. Still familiar, still full of things unsaid. I tried to rebuild. I started therapy, took long walks at night, journaled, avoided wine, avoided mirrors. I even called my mother. You sound tired, she said. I was, but more than that, Ty was changing. For the first time in years, I was sitting with myself and really asking hard questions. Who am I without someone else to hold me up? What do I want when no one's watching? Then one evening, out of nowhere, Daniel emailed me. Not a text, not a call, an email, like he was trying to keep it formal, distant. But the subject line said, "Can we talk? Just once." My stomach flipped. I stared at it for a full hour before. Opening it, he said he and Rachel had officially separated. That it had been coming for a long time. That being with me had forced him to face things he'd ignored for years. He said he wasn't writing to win me back. He just wanted to say the things he hadn't said. It's the things that mattered. We met at a park neutral, open, no expectations. When I saw him walking toward me, something inside me tightened. He looked different, softer, maybe. Or maybe it was me who had changed. We talked for hours. No accusations, no pretending, just truth. He told me he'd loved me, that he probably still did. But I didn't say it back, 'cause love wasn't enough anymore. Not without honesty, not without space to heal. I thanked him for the apology, for the closure, for finally being real with me. Then I stood up, gave him one last look, and walked away. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally cared about myself more. It's been months now. I live alone in a small apartment with light in the mornings and quiet at night. Still learning how to be whole on my own. It's messy and imperfect and sometimes lonely, but it's mine. And maybe one day, love will come again, cleaner this time, honest. The kind that doesn't require betrayal or secrecy to feel alive. But for now, I'm enough, and that's the real ending I never saw coming.